There is nothing wrong with your internet. Do not attempt to adjust your settings. We are controlling the podcast. We control the squealing and the screams. We can make your heart flutter, your eyes blur from tears, or sharpen your mind to crystal clarity. For the next hour, sit back. We are in control of what you hear. We repeat, there is nothing wrong with your settings. You are about to experience the awe and mystery known as the female mind. You are now entering the Fangirl Zone.
Things are only impossible until they're not. Welcome to the Captain's Chair, a Star Trek Picard podcast on the Fangirl Zone. I'm Chief Engineer Steve, and joining me on this mission into the unknown is...
I'm Redshirt Dave, and tonight we'll be discussing Episode 8 of Season 1 of Star Trek Picard.
Well, this one provided us with a few answers, but brought up a whole lot more questions than it provided answers for, didn't it, Dave?
It sure did. I can only think of that three-dimensional chess they used to play.
Right.
I have enough trouble with one-dimensional chess.
Yeah.
And this three-dimensional chess that requires you to gather and think and collect so much information that they gave us in this and then try to weave it all together. And I have to admit, I'm still working on that mental basket that I'm weaving together. I'm a basket case.
Yes, absolutely. Well, shall we get into this?
Yeah, let's do it. Let's see if we can put some of these broken pieces back together.
Exactly.
So in our episode 8, which is aptly named Broken Pieces, see how clever I am? Yeah. Picard realizes how far some will go to protect secrets that go back generations when truths about the Mars attacks are revealed. We find that Narissa orders her guards to capture poor Elnor and setting off a chain reaction on the Borg cube, which is what I was hoping for all along.
Yes.
Get that sucker fired up.
Well, we do have some catching up on the past to do, as once again we flash back 14 years where we see Commander O and a cadre of female accomplices all dressed in black hooded robes on Aja, the grief world. Now, standing in a circle in the desert, O, who we don't know what she is.
Well, that answers some questions. I mean, they said to her, she's half Romulan and half Vulcan. So it explains my question of last week. Why would a Vulcan have the logic for all this destruction? How do you find the logic behind all of this if you're a Vulcan and being a traitor? I had wondered. Well, she's half Romulan, so there's a shortcut there for her.
Yes. And we find out that their ancestors had come there long ago and discovered the memories of an ancient civilization that met a grim fate. The race left behind an object known as the Admonition, which warned of horror and annihilation coming from the skies above. And when O's godmothers first endured the Admonition, the Zhat Vash were born.
So, great origin story. Right.
Now, of course, it is very interesting that it seems that the Zhat Vash were all women and the Qowat Milat are all women.
Yeah, interesting. Women that give birth to things. Races, peoples, children.
So for hundreds of years, the Zhat Vash has operated in the shadows to prevent the second coming of the destroyers. And we see a glowing table in a circular pool, and the members are all to place their hands on the Admonition. And it doesn't go well.
Nope. That's one secret club you should have taken away from.
Yes. Per O's prediction, most are driven mad by the visions they receive, blowing their brains out, or smashing their heads with rocks, or in case of Ramda, pulling out her hair.
Yeah. I wonder what the selection process was to bring these women together.
Right.
She had to get these people that she felt were qualified, and enough of them in hopes at least one survives.
Yeah.
It's the cutest one.
Yeah, Narissa.
Yes. Still, that's really odd.
Yeah.
I wonder if there was other Cabals before them. I mean, there has to be generations at least.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. The Zhat Vash have been around for centuries. So, yeah, I'm sure that they've had many, many members. And I'm kind of curious as to find out if it's a family thing that only members of certain Romulan families take up the mantle, or because they're supposed to be secretive.
Right.
So you can't run an ad in the newspaper saying, oh, we're looking for new members.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, the selection process, I don't know. And she's half Vulcan, too, which kind of ties into my old theory about the Vulcans had something to do with the Romulans and splitting off.
Yep.
So maybe there's something to that. I don't know, but that was a long time ago.
Yeah.
A lot of questions in this one.
Yes,
so I wonder who the next generation falls to, no pun intended, of the Zhat Vash and whoever's in this circle.
Right.
Who gets it? Will Rizzo be the next one and she has to hold the next meeting?
Wouldn't surprise me. You would think the youngest one would be the one that takes over. But
if they're killed, that means there's no group to carry on the warning.
Right.
Or the admonishment. So I don't know if Picard's pretty optimistic. If he kills up them, you don't know if the Romulans are doing the wrong thing. But, of course, leaping ahead a little, he said they always deal from fear.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, this one's really got me thinking, Steve.
Yeah, we probably could have spent a month or two processing before we could actually come up with good, solid theories on this episode, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So shall we head over to the reclamation cube?
Why not? So we go back to the cube, and Rizzo, or Narissa, since we're on a first-name basis, is visiting her now comatose auntie, Ramda, which is interesting to find out. At first, I thought when she said auntie, I just thought that was a cultural thing. And anybody that's a little older than you,
right? You
can even call them mom or grandma or something, or auntie, which happens in a lot of Earth cultures too.
Yes.
But we found out they were adopted, she and Narek, that is Narissa and Narek, by this auntie. As she was standing over her, there's one question that we had: what would cause the Borg cube to shut down? And it turns out it's a little panache, which is another word for madness.
Yeah.
You could say that she broke the Borg cube through her sheer force of her grief from the admonition. But that's, man, I don't know. Did they take on madness too in an emotional state if you take on a simulate somebody? That's a question that should be asked. I don't know if we'll ever get an answer.
Right. But it does kind of make a little bit of sense. I mean, you would think the Borg aren't completely mechanized. There is still some part of whatever they were to begin with still there. So that much emotion, yeah, that could be a little too much for the Hive collective to handle. So that's probably why they disconnected that cube from the entire collective.
Yeah. Well, that would have ended them for sure.
Yeah, that really would have ended them.
So if the Borg is still out there, they must have a queen, I guess.
Yeah.
So what are they up to?
Exactly.
Too many questions.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's too many questions. I'm going too far ahead. Clicking the runes someplace. Anyway, Rizzo wants to find Elnor because he's still going around there. And we got an answer into how Elnor stumbled across that communication chip to get the Rangers. The action comes back to a skirmish between the now located Elnor and the Romulans. And Seven comes in, starts blasting and rescue them. And she's awarded with this giant hug.
That was
really
awesome.
Cute. Yeah, I know, it was awesome. Poor Elnor. He's a world-class or a galactic-class fighter. But he still needs to hug somebody when he's rescued.
Yeah.
So glad to see you. So apparently Hugh kept a chip in his office because that's where he was hiding out, in Hugh's office.
Right.
Yeah. So we would wonder, who leaves chips around a Borg cube?
Yeah.
So now we know.
Yeah. We assume that Seven probably did visit the cube and probably had conversations with Hugh and basically left that chip for him in case there was an emergency.
Right. Pretty good. So they go to the Queen cell, and Elnor's acting like a child. He's so childlike. Everything's so new to him. He's like, that's cool. Yeah. If he would say that's cool, but that's his reaction to everything. And Seven begins to regenerate the cube, which is pretty cool, too.
Oh, it was awesome.
Yeah.
Especially seeing the outside of it, the way it was piecing itself back together. Yeah, that was excellent.
That was weird.
Excellent.
It made me think of nanobots, but I don't think they were really that small since we could see the scale they were. But something to that effect.
Right.
What if those things are just pieces of the cube, but once activated, they start crawling all over it?
Probably. I think we saw something like that. What was it? The replicants on Stargate?
Yeah.
Kind of saw something that looked just like that on that show. So it's cool.
I wonder how Seven knew to connect herself. I mean, as a child, she is more Borg than most assimilated people are in their adulthood.
Right.
Do you suppose she had that connective tissue of memory once she accessed the queen cell, she knew how to start things up and connect herself to the cube.
Oh, yeah. She definitely had that memory and that knowledge of how to do it, because she mentions instead of trying to connect to the total hive, she's going to try to create a micro collective.
Right.
Just that cube.
It would help because it localizes
right
to one cube in that area. It's interesting that she didn't want to enslave him again either.
Right.
She wanted to activate them, but she didn't want to enslave them. You could see that moral quandary play itself out in just a few seconds.
Yeah, Jerry Ryan was absolutely amazing in this episode, how she processed what needed to be done, what the risks were, and what the outcome would be.
Yeah, very interesting. And to think that Jerry Ryan was actually afraid of reprising her role. She just couldn't quite connect to it until she had her talk with Patrick Stewart. Now she's into it.
D'Arco.
Yeah, exactly. So her plan is to activate all the XBs and the sleeping Borg. They're in stasis. And in the meantime, Rizzo also has a plan, which is to get rid of them. She's thinking, let's see, electrocution. She's a real sadist.
Oh, yeah.
And the Centurion goes, well, we could just jettison them into space. She's like, ooh.
Yeah.
Good grief. So she takes some guy along and executes a room full of XBs, which is super cruel.
Oh, yeah. Just like when she got rid of Hugh.
Yeah. So it's basically a race to see who can take over the cube first. Can Seven connect to the collective inside the cube, or can Rizzo blast enough into space? And did you think when they started getting blasted into space that sound effect that we heard was like that collective scream?
Oh, yes.
Wasn't that weird? That was like eerie.
Yes, very.
So anyway, the Romulan fleet has the coordinates to the synthetic homeworld, which is part of the part I'm still wrestling over, whether it really is a synthetic homeworld or is a lab there, or is there surviving synthetics there from thousands of years ago? I don't know.
Right.
But the XBs eventually take her down. And it was a very cool scene. It reminded me, here's a little boomer talk here for you. Remember the old rat movies? Like, what was the first rat one? The second movie was Ben.
Yeah.
In the first movie about the rats, it reminded me of the rat crawling all over.
Right. Because they really weren't hurting her. It looked like they were just all pawing at her.
Yeah, it looks like they could have taken her apart.
Oh, yeah.
I'm curious how she activates this
transporter. Yes.
She couldn't have reached something to tap.
No, it had to be on her body.
Yeah, I wonder if she can just think it. And then I thought, well, maybe it's in her teeth. If she pushes her teeth together, that activates the transporter.
Right.
Anyway, the race is over, and the Borg now control the cube. And I tell you, I had visions of this cube chasing after the Romulan fleet.
Right.
Seven also releases itself because Elnor asks her, hey, you going to assimilate me? He's a little edgy there. Such a child. And the darkened-eyed 7 of 9. I don't know what we'd call her. I saw somebody on Facebook say, was she a queen just then?
Oh, yeah.
I don't know.
Queen of that cube, absolutely.
If she was, I don't know how she would have compassion for another living thing like that. She said Annika still has work to do. Interesting that she referred to Annika herself as Annika while she was in quotations, queen.
That was very interesting.
Very interesting. It might happen again, so we'll have to make a mental note of that.
Yes. Will 7 be able to do that again?
Yeah.
It would be interesting to find out if it was 7 actually being able to pull enough of our humanity out to be able to disconnect, or if it was the cube itself that was able to tell that 7 wasn't a complete Borg and sensed her feelings and desires and made that call for her.
Yeah, I was wondering if there was a flip of the script on that too, a little role reversal.
Right.
And when she said, I don't want to enslave them, I also thought, I don't want to be enslaved by them. But your thought that the cube or the collective on the cube understood that she was, I don't know, it had too much humanity in her, could have allowed her to be released.
Right.
But I was afraid she was on some type of internal countdown that she knew she could keep her humanity for so long until she became enslaved by the cube.
Something else to think about.
Yes, I know.
So we're going to head over to the La Sirena, and we're having a mutiny of sorts here as Rio just freaks out at the sight of Soji.
Yeah.
It was great because he's in his own world and Picard's trying to talk to him and they had it sounding very distant and it was like,
out of focus,
whoa,
yeah.
What the frick is going on here?
I guess he really did go through some type of psychological breakdown because he has a little PTSD from it to have that type of reaction by seeing. Yeah.
And,
I mean, they almost lost him again.
Yeah. Now, he does agree to Picard's request to chart a course to Deep Space 12, but after which he tells Picard he's done. Whoa!
Yeah.
There's something going on here, and we can't wait to find out. Of course, Picard tells Soji she has no choice but to trust him, and as soon as he says that, Picard is basically attacked by Raffi.
Yeah, now this time she's holding the cards in her hand.
All of them.
She has more information than Jean-Luc does, and some of her instincts were proven true.
Yep. As she tells JL that Girardi is a double agent, a Romulan spy, and killed Maddox.
Yeah.
Of course, Picard balks at this, but...
Yeah, what do you say, fact or...
Theory.
He didn't say theory, right?
Yeah, and Raffi has to say theory at first, but...
Yeah.
And then, of course, she blasts him some more for this rescue, sacrifice, and redemption mission he's on, as Soji is only a single neuron.
Yeah, that's when my head started spinning again about, because I'm always trying to find an answer before we actually get an answer.
Oh, well, of course. That's the fun of Star Trek.
Yeah, and any television show watching.
Yeah.
It's almost a chicken and egg thing that we're faced with here.
Right.
Yeah.
And later on, we see Picard in his study with Admiral Clancy.
Yeah, that looked pretty real.
Yeah. And of course, it brings back memories of the last time we saw them together. Because they're both just as fired up about what they're saying as they were then.
She tells him to shut the F up.
Yes.
And I think it's because she's tired of seeing him as correct. And he knows he's correct, too.
Yes.
He was correct.
Yeah, he knows it, too.
Yeah. And I thought it was interesting that she called him Admiral Picard and not just Picard.
Right.
I was thinking that when the squadron meets them at DS-12, that he would be the admiral in charge of that squadron. I was really looking forward to that.
Yes. Hopefully they'll get message to the squadron to meet him somewhere else.
Yeah. You'd think they would notice a movement of the Romulan fleet or what's left of it.
Right.
Are they crossing in the Alpha Quadrant, I'm assuming?
Don't know. We really don't know where that planet is.
We don't know. Now, if they did, that would be an open case of war. But if this Bite system is in the Beta Quadrant, you're not going to get much help from the Federation or
anybody else,
Starfleet.
Matter.
if they, conversely, if they cross, that's an act of war.
Right.
And then, of course, there's a Borg cube out there.
Hopefully,
what were you going to say?
Show up real quick. I think we're going to need them against the Romulan fleet there.
Yeah. I wonder what.
Of course, we don't get to see the whole conversation, or at least what Picard tells Clancy that convinces her.
Yeah, she seemed convinced when we joined them in conversation already.
Right. You want to go pull your hair out like Rhonda did. Give me more information on this.
Yeah.
Was it speculation? Did he have proof? Was he just using the fact that Girardi killed Maddox or what? He had to have something in black and white to show her that convinced her. And why didn't she say, well, I'll take care of O?
Yeah, no kidding.
If that was what it was.
Yeah, O's in a lot of trouble now. I must say, you would think. And it's a little surprising we didn't get to see a glimpse or a mention of that. Right. Oh, by the way, you have a mole.
Yeah.
Soji has one on her chest.
Yeah.
Starfleet has one in security.
All right, shall we check in on our favorite conspiracy theorist?
Oh, yes. Detective Raffi, you mean?
Yeah.
So Rios, we found that Rios is, since he was near another psychotic breakdown or neurotic breakdown, he's locked himself away in his quarters. So Raffi goes on this tour of meeting with all the holograms. I was a little surprised. She went up to the bridge and saw Rios there, but it wasn't Rios.
Right.
And she's talking away as if it was. And I'm like, dude, don't you know?
Yeah.
But she's talking with him, and she asked since he was an engineer.
No,
was he the engineer? He's a navigator.
Navigator,
he's the
right.
navigator,
the
right.
navigator was first, then the engineer, then the whole 5 of them.
Yeah, and she learned of the octenary, an apocryphal planet systems. So this is still steeped in Romulan history. I made note of that.
Right.
Why just Romulan history for this? And that would eliminate, if you're thinking Q, bringing these 8 stars together with their component planets and incredible massive gravitational fluctuations that it must be causing.
Right.
That doesn't sound very Q-ish
No.
to me. And it's the thing of legend, too. And it seems strictly a Romulan legend. I'm surprised this didn't go beyond the Star Empire.
You would think. More question.
So, yeah. So, but Rafi figures out that this conclave of 8 didn't refer to people, which is what we were thinking. And we were thinking like maybe it's 8 different parts of the Federation or whatever that came together. But it was really a conclave of 8 stars with a secret and a warning down in the middle of it. Yeah. He told her that this octenary couldn't occur naturally. Yeah, but if it isn't Q, how do you bring 8 stars together?
Right.
Is there like
some super advanced civilization that got wiped out by so-called synthetics? That's for sure.
Yeah, or the synthetics did it, or
could be.
Or I was thinking, get a black hole or warping technology, and if you can create the gravitational pull of a black hole, will bring a sun towards it. I mean, that's what happens in real life now, anyway.
Oh, absolutely.
So I wonder if they were able to engineer a black holes that were able to either transport suns through it through a singularity and have them come to one spot, or just use the gravitational pull of nearby stars together. This is the things that keeps me awake at night.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm trying to work on how you bring 8 stars together.
Right.
So a lot of this is getting to Rafi, and she can't quite communicate with the captain. So she goes for a little alcohol break, and she found out that she can't get into her. She can't access, what'd she look for, whiskey to start with?
Yeah. First she said burgundy, and then she said wine.
Yeah. Nope. And speaking of drinking, Rios is drinking it up in his cabin. He goes through an old cigar box of mementos, because you can see the locker sitting across. He's sitting at the end, and the locker has a Starfleet logo on it. So I go, Starfleet law. He still has it.
Yes.
So you know he's going to open that thing up.
Yeah, his uniform and some vinyl. Imagine that.
Some vinyl, I know. Imagine that. Hope he's got an original Beatles album in there.
Yeah.
You can buy your own Boy Cube. So Rafi decides to go, he goes into the Picard Chateau study, which is interesting. I guess that's the meeting place, or the only place where there's the hologram. And you can just activate the Picard's office there.
Right.
And maybe they don't use it for much else. I mean, she could have created anything, I should say. And you can meet with the 5 holograms anywhere else, too. Maybe she's just looking for privacy.
Right. I'm sure she was.
Okay.
While she's still building her theory.
Yes. Yep. She lies awake at night, too.
Yeah.
That was interesting. You got your Orphan Black moment.
Yes.
When you saw them all together when they slapped themselves on the side of the head was pretty funny.
Yeah.
They tell her they have a collective memory. They don't have all the same memories.
Right.
From Rios, but they have pieces. And so in a joint conversation, she finds out from them collectively that he had a traumatic breakdown after he was introduced to Jana and in the story behind Vandermeer, his captain.
Right.
So armed with that, Rafi goes back to Rios and he recounts the whole story and shows her the picture in the story of beautiful flower and a young protege named Jana, who looks just like Soji. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, no wonder he freaked out.
Yeah. So that opens up another locker full of questions. Like, okay, so there was a first contact opportunity. He was directed to go there and by Starfleet, but the directive wasn't a coincidence. They knew that he had to be sent there to execute a black flag directive and kill Beautiful Flower and Jana. So obviously there was intelligence available to whoever brought this mission to bear.
Oh, absolutely.
So it was deemed a first contact, but obviously someone knew they were there.
Yep.
So was it really a first contact? How did that information get out?
Right. I have a feeling that when Maddox ran,
yeah,
O knew where he went. They've been on Maddox's tail ever since.
She should have killed him then.
You would think. So that kind of lends a little credence to maybe this synthetic society was already in place even when Maddox got there.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah, it's very possible.
I can't get my head around it. Which came first, the chicken or the egg?
Yeah.
Was this single neuron that helped create Soji and Daj? Or did Maddox go to the right place where there was a community of these people that wanted to reestablish contact?
Right.
Boy, I had a feeling.
We'll find that out in the next 2 episodes.
Hopefully, yeah, 2 left. So it does confirm that Jana was identical to Soji. Originally I thought when they were looking for Maddox's lab, they would just find a closet full of Soji and Daj. And now we might think it might be a community.
Yeah, it's possible.
I mean, it's possible anyway. So many questions.
Yes.
So what do you think now, Steve? A little bonding time?
Yeah, well, I thought it was interesting that Rios ended up covering up the crime so Starfleet didn't destroy the entire ship.
Oh, yeah, he was complicit. Well, that makes Rios complicit in the crime. You could say.
Yes, absolutely. And that's why he was kicked out, basically.
It'll lead to maybe the guilt drove him to have his own breakdown.
Right. Yeah, but moving on to some bonding time, we get an immensely awesome sit down with Soji and Picard while they're eating. And Soji basically just squares Jean-Luc up, and it's no holes barred here. I want to find out exactly who you are.
Yeah, because as we saw in the preview at the start of the episode of the previous episode, we go back to, what was the name of the daughter played by Lulu? She was saying that she could trust Picard. You have Picard. He could be like a father figure to you. Yeah. So it looked as though that Soji was measuring up Picard. She was asking about what Data thought, but was really in place of what she was thinking of Picard. She was cross-examining him.
Right.
And unbeknownst to Picard, he was providing all the answers she needed to hear.
Yes. Yeah, it was nice that he was able to really give a pretty good explanation of who Data was and what he was about. I loved the line that he made us all laugh, except when he was trying to make us laugh. It was so Data.
Yeah.
And then, out of nowhere, Soji basically concludes that, yes, Data loved him as well.
Yeah. It was interesting to see that reaction on Jean-Luc's face, too.
Yes.
He had his moment where he didn't realize what was going on, and then he had that moment of self-actualization where he actually came to the grip that both of them were so much alike and having trouble sharing emotions. And he didn't admit to himself until now that he loved Data, and that Data probably loved him back.
For as much as he could.
Yeah.
Yeah, the line that they both had limited capacity for expressing and processing emotions was very classic, and it was the truth. There's no doubt that both of them, we knew Data, but Jean-Luc was exactly the same way to a certain extent.
It answers questions of me. I mean, are all Starfleet captains like that, or is it just Jean-Luc? Because most of them, in all the show we watched, the captains are single and just remain that way.
Right.
Or for whatever reason, of course, there's a lot of responsibility. You can't have a mate or partner and then have to worry about them all the time and still be captain.
Right.
Something I always wondered.
Yep. So we move on to Girardi as she is now conscious again, and she basically confesses that she killed Maddox because Commodore O poisoned her mind with visions of a century-old apocalypse.
I thought Picard was going to say, oh, you mean a Vulcan mind meld? But he never did.
No, he didn't.
He's had one himself.
Yep. And she tells him we're at the threshold. Unless we act quickly and destroy even the possibility of synthetic life, we'll get the return of the destroyer. And you kind of go, yeah, you're still drinking that Kool-Aid there, Girardi.
Yeah, because we don't know if that implant or the poison she put into her mind is exactly true.
Right. That's just basically what we saw at the admonishment.
Yeah, well, it seems pretty true if you take that perspective.
Right.
You know, that is all doom and gloom, but that's how the Romulans think anything. Anyway, everything's always doom and gloom with them.
Yeah.
I mean, they're willing to kill themselves just to get information or drive themselves mad.
Right.
Interesting society.
Yep. Later on, Girardi actually gets to meet Soji, and all of a sudden she's back to being scientist Girardi, as she is just so amazed that Soji sleeps and eats and cries and has feelings just like a normal human.
Yeah, a masterpiece.
Yeah, a work of art.
Interesting. I looked up Vandermeer
Right.
I'm familiar with Vandermeer as an artist. There was an elder and a younger Vandermeer, and they were both landscape artists. So when you talk about masterpieces and work of art, we're a little skipping ahead to Easter eggs, but Vandermeer was an artist, and they worked on masterpieces.
Right.
So I guess, I don't know, I think it was a Johnny Vandermeer that pitched the first perfect game
I think
in
so.
Major League Baseball.
Yep.
Yeah. And that was called a masterpiece, too.
Yeah.
Ha! Wonder if there's a baseball fan on the writing staff, or an art fan for that matter, of course.
Right. Now, of course, Soji asks Girardi if she considers her a person, and Girardi just can't answer that.
Right.
Not good.
I thought she was going to blurt out yes.
Right.
But she didn't.
But she does tell Soji that despite Commodore O's order to kill her, she would never harm Soji. Well, let's wait and see. I'm not sure I'm buying that just yet.
Yeah, I don't think we're entirely convinced that Agnes is out of the thrall
Right.
of that Vulcan mind meld.
No.
I mean, if you can put up some type of bulkhead, who's to say another bulkhead doesn't contain something else and it'll be opened upon the right emotional command or whatever.
Right.
So there's a nice scene where the La Serena crew is all together for a nice little chat. And Girardi comes in and apologizes for what she's done. She agrees she's going to turn herself in once they reach Deep Space 12. I was really hoping we'd see Deep Space 12 too.
Me too.
Not this episode and not the next one either.
I don't think so.
Too bad. And I wanted to see the fleet too. I'm curious to see if the Enterprise is part of that squadron that's on its way to Deep Space
Worf.
12. Yeah, Worf. So it's a good time to bury the hatchet, and Rios give Soji some French fries and a peppermint milkshake. And I'm like, yuck. Apparently, Jonna, that he had met long ago, liked to dip French fries into peppermint ice cream or milkshake. Like double yuck.
Yeah.
And these things come to Soji now. He said, how do I know that you know that? And how do I know I do like that?
Yeah.
She keeps rebuilding herself and becoming ever knowledgeable to things that come out of nowhere. It's too bad her eyes don't glow like the holograms when they're thinking about something.
That was a nice touch by the FX
computing.
people. Yes.
Yeah. Rafi explains that some 200,000 to 300,000 years ago, someone or something dragged 8 suns together and hung a plant in the middle of them to house an admonition, which warns of a past in which a synthetic life was created and evolved to the point where it nearly brought about the destruction of, I don't know, organic life forms?
Yeah.
I suppose. I didn't say.
Yeah.
And we still don't know if that was in the Alpha Quadrant or the Beta Quadrant when all this happened.
Right.
But since it's Romulan history, I'm guessing this is in the Beta Quadrant.
You would think. Maybe.
Maybe. So anyway, she concluded this, fearing this synthetic dividing line might be crossed into the future. The Romulans formed the Zhat Vash to terminate all synthetic life form. That's their story.
Yep.
No, and they're sticking to it. Whether it's right or not, I guess so. And it adds fuel to the fire, or at least more proof that this, these 8 suns that gather together is in the Beta Quadrant. I'm becoming more convinced of that as we go on here. So we also learned that O had been carrying out a crusade as a mole within Starfleet. And she's the one who orchestrated the false flag attack on Mars. So we come to realize, and that's another question that was answered, that the Romulans were behind the attack.
On Mars, yes.
That's pretty large scale. And that's an act of war right there.
Oh, absolutely.
And we were asking ourselves, why would the Romulans attack their own rescue fleet?
Right.
Their paranoid is so deep that this was more important to them.
Yeah, apparently so. Your sun is going supernova, about to wipe out your entire race, and you have to go start this. And
yeah. Somebody said, hold it. I know that's going to happen, but we got something to do first.
Right.
Really?
So what if the Romulan race is down to almost nothing?
Yeah.
There's still a race, but we can't let the synthetics destroy us.
Wow. All I can say to that is wow.
Yeah.
I wonder if we'll ever get an explanation for that.
Yeah, that would
that's
be
some real
something I would
deep
like
paranoia.
to hear on the witness stand trying to convince the High Council that she's right.
We had heard hints that there was different factions within the Romulan leftover structure.
Right.
There's the paranoid version that the Zhat Vash still, and I guess that's the people that are aboard the cube? Or is that there is, because there's another Romulan, what they call it? The Free Romulan State?
I think, yeah.
No, the Free Romulan State.
Oh, right.
Or whatever they call it. They're out there too. That's not part of the whoever's on the board cube, I'm guessing.
I wouldn't think
I don't know.
so.
I don't know.
Yeah.
We haven't heard from them either.
No.
You go back to Star Trek Nemesis. Romulan said to him, "You have a friend."
Yep.
What happened to them?
Right.
Put to death?
I don't think so. I still think most of the Talishar and Josh Vosh are working outside of the Romulan Free State.
Yeah, and they're pretty powerful, apparently.
Yeah.
Maybe the Romulan Free State doesn't have a fleet, but you'd think they would.
Yeah, you would think.
Okay, so we're going a little ahead of ourselves here.
Left field.
So with the knowledge of the synthetics ban and Rios' encounter with Jana, Soji locks everyone out of the bridge and charts a course to her homeworld, which is after ruining the table, too, of course.
Right, yeah.
You see the look on everyone's face.
Like,
she knows
crap.
Yep. She slams her fist on the table and she says, "This is my fault." That's when she storms off. And I'm thinking back, how is it your fault? Oh, you mean revealing to Narek there.
Right.
No, she's pretty hard on herself. She knows. Everyone's been coercing her one way or another. She really didn't do it deliberately, but
right.
I don't know. When you're faced with that much guilt, I suppose you claim it's your fault, even though it wasn't really. You can't blame her.
She's like Eleanor. She's really a child with not a lot of experience. So, yeah, when something really bad happens, you take on that responsibility, whether it was completely yours or not.
Yeah.
Until you get older and learn how to process it, be able to assign the blame where it actually belongs.
It's interesting how everyone gets together and puts together their own thoughts on what they should do and where they should go.
Right.
Once he finds out he's locked out of his own bridge, he comes up with a plan to lock himself back in.
Yeah.
By saying a little lullaby there that I guess Jonna
door.
Yeah, Jonna knew about it, but
I don't think so.
No, all right. But I think it was a good leadership moment that Picard brings everyone together and convinces Rios this is the thing to do.
Right.
Because Rios is having second thoughts. What if she really is the destroyer of worlds? What are we doing? Should we be helping her?
Yeah.
And that's when Picard comes up. The past is written, but the future is left us drawing. We have powerful tools too, like openness, optimism, and the spirit of curiosity, which is not something the Romulans have.
Right. Yeah.
None of the above. Yeah, none of the above. How did they make it that far? That's a race of people.
Yeah.
Yeah, he
that's
says.
A really good question.
All they have is secrecy and fear is the great destroyer.
Yeah.
Pun intended, Jean-Luc?
Yeah, I think so.
But yet still, they founded the Star Empire, though. These are mighty big questions here. If this is exclusive to Romulan culture and history, that's interesting.
Yeah.
It seems greater than that.
Yeah, it does, but right now, it's hard to see it.
Yeah, it is. Oh, it's definitely hard to see it. So we're going to get a movement when they finally make it to the vortex, and they're followed by an enemy ship.
Yes, good old Narek somehow knew where the transwarp opening was.
Yeah, I wonder how.
Yeah, really good question there. And will the Romulans show up there, the fleet jump through as well?
Yeah, does it sit there open?
Right.
Do you have to detect it? Does it close? It looked like, I don't know, it was swirling. Looks like something that could open and close.
Right.
So I don't know if that remains open for the rest of the fleet or squadron and fleet to go through.
Right.
It's at this point like, okay, we have 2 episodes left. I don't know how much they can tell or finish off this particular story without having to continue it in the next season. And we already know there's the next season. So that pressure may not be there to give us all these answers.
Very true.
Yeah.
And of course, that leads us to Easter eggs. And first one is, didn't Voyager destroy the transwarp network when it returned to the Alpha Quadrant?
Oh, boy.
And so that's a question that we don't have an answer to, which definitely seems to need one. Now, I guess if you could say that was the network heading to the Alpha Quadrant only, then yeah, I guess there still could be one in the Beta Quadrant.
I guess.
And Soji knew about it, so yeah.
Okay. This could be the work of 7 of 9, too. If there was one and only one that was left open or destroyed, or thought destroyed, maybe it wasn't. And maybe 7 of 9 knew how to access it again or kept it open.
Right.
Or with all the confusion with the fall of the Empire and in the neutral zone where she became a ranger.
Yep.
She had access to this place, I guess.
I could buy that a little bit more than anything I can come up with, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, if you can leave a chip behind in Hugh's headquarters, I suppose she can leave stuff for herself behind that she can access should she need it.
Yep. And of course, we get a Zephram Cochrane shout out when Picard and Rios are talking about Vandermeer,
Yep.
who Picard actually knows because he served as first officer under his academy classmate, Marta Batanes, who was a main player in the TNG episode Tapestry.
Yeah, that was interesting.
Yes, it was.
How many times have you met somebody and, oh, I know that person, and you talk to an old classmate and say, oh, yeah, that person was in the class ahead of me or two behind me, or my sister was in that guy's class,
Right,
so you know
exactly,
them.
Yep.
That connection's there for you.
Yep. So do you got some Easter eggs and theories to throw out there, Dave?
I don't know.
So many
was a
questions.
Yes. So we touched on how you bring 8 suns together. And who was it that said you do it when you're showing off? What was one of the holograms? If you want to show off, that's what you do. So I rolled my eyes. You know how Q used to like to show off.
Oh, absolutely. He was the biggest show off.
I thought that was a Easter egg to Q because he shows off. And if you wanted to bring 8 suns together, it would be him.
Right.
He's also the guy that brought the board to the Alpha Quadrant. If you want to bring this together, I mean, why would you want to? He wanted to rain down, well, he didn't want to, destruction with the Borg. And why would you want to put a warning on this planet with 8 suns around it? That sounds mutually exclusive.
Right. Yeah. It doesn't sound like anything Q would do. I mean, at one point, Q actually developed some, I don't know if you would call them feelings for Data, but he did give him something. One time he was going to give him all the emotions and everything. And Data said, no, I don't want it. But he still gives him that god-awful laugh that we hear. So could Q be involved? Yeah.
It could be.
Still
I kind of hope not.
Yeah, me too. I mean, yes, I do. I would like to see Q return, but not because he's got something to do with this.
He was in the final episode of Star Trek The Next Generation, wasn't he? Trying to come back to it. Did he say he's like, oh, this is out there for you?
Yeah.
To Picard?
Yeah.
And it sounded like a swan song or an exit. I don't expect him to come back, and I know John Delancey has not been doing much acting at all lately, just some voiceover work.
Right.
And they've brought together a lot of people already to grab someone else from Next Generation, bring it back. That might be too much. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that might be too much. Yeah. Then Picard gets a lot of flack on the internet as it is.
Right.
If they just start rebooting Next Generation, people will go, I'm done.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be done.
No.
I like seeing all these people. But it's true. I would like to stay a little more original.
Yep.
It's great to have inspiration, but you just can't rely on it. We get enough of that coming out of Hollywood anyway.
Yes, absolutely.
So do you want to revisit the chicken or egg issue and the Data and one? Remember when Rafi started barking at Picard about all this for one neuron?
Absolutely.
And made me wonder, well, how much did Data have to do with this? I mean, okay, he died.
Right.
And did Maddox have one neuron that he kept? He was able to do his own organic synth. I really got confused because it sounded like there was a race of organic synths hundreds of thousands of years ago. I guess that's established.
Right.
But is there still one out there? And that's where Maddox was working?
Right.
Which would mean he didn't do much work at all if they were already there and they all look like him. I mean, look like Soji. I don't know. I guess you had a theory that maybe it was his work.
Right.
And that the band of Sojis or whatever they are come out. And it was interesting to see that one of these ambassadors in a supposed first contact was named Beautiful Flower. And of course, we've seen a lot of flowers so far.
And I don't know. We don't know if it was a male or female. We only see the drawing of Soji. But we go back to Star City Rag where Maddox tells Bjayzl that the Talish Yar found his lab and destroyed it.
Right.
So that can't be the same lab that Soji remembered in the dream.
Right.
I mean, we get a huge disconnect here between where we think Maddox created these synths.
Right.
And where Soji's going that's supposedly her home.
Right. That was a huge disconnect.
Right.
It makes one believe, okay, there is a race.
Right. Absolutely. Maddox is kind of his own separate guy.
Yeah. that coincidentally created someone that looked just like Soji?
Right, which that...
I don't know.
Yeah.
That's weird.
Yeah, I mean, it's having Data paint the picture, and then Maddie's creating. Yeah. Frustrating question.
Yeah. So we find out that Picard served aboard the Reliant.
What?
I know, what? The same Reliant?
Yeah.
From the original Star Trek and the Wrath of Khan? How that ship's been around for a while. Okay, that's fine.
Right.
But holy smokes.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You'd think. And interesting enough, all that, the Wrath of Khan and the original episode of The Space Seed, was about building another society full of perfect humans.
Right.
Wow. Talk about connected tissue.
And maybe that's kind of where they're going with this. Maybe that is the connection we needed to find out.
Yeah.
Maybe the people that were working on Khan and that group was also doing synthetic work as well.
Yeah, that's, I don't know if you heard that noise, but my brain just rolled out my ear and hit the floor. I hope our listeners come up with something.
Yeah, me too.
Please help.
All right, speaking of listeners, we do have some feedback this week from our friend Fred from the Netherlands, so let's take a listen.
Hello, Steve and Dave. This is Fred from the Netherlands with some feedback for Star Trek Picard, Season 1, Episode 8. Actually, I should be preparing to go to Amsterdam instead of recording this audio feedback because I had a William Shatner theater show in Amsterdam. So watching the film Wrath of Khan and then afterwards have a Q&A with William Shatner. But of course of the coronavirus crisis, this all was cancelled. But it was very tricky last week because my employer, being a university hospital, strongly advised their personnel not to go to any meetings with more than 30 people. And I would have gone to that with my 16-year-old son. But he refused to go with his mother, so he said, I go with Dad or I don't go at all. So I had 2 tickets, what to do with it. But then, fortunately, our government decided to prohibit any meetings of more than 100 people, so all theater shows and also this show had to be cancelled. So now the show is postponed. It will happen somewhere in the future or I will get my money back. Okay, about episode 8. I first thought it wasn't that good and a little bit as we had one before, blah blah episode as I call it, with a lot of exposition and a lot of talking. So originally I wanted to give this episode a 6, but because of the very nice discussion Picard and Soji had over this meal, very well acted by both of them, by the way, that made it much better, and I really liked the Borg Queen sequence of 7 of 9. So these 2 things really boosted it up, and I would give it now a 7.5 or something like that out of 10. I also liked the acting of Peyton List, who plays Narissa, in her monologue to the unconscious aunt Ramda. Very nice acting. Very nice close-ups. Also the discussion between Raffi and Enoch, the ENH, the navigational hologram, was of course very nice. And he being completely out of his, or in his element after she kissed him. And which cannot be denied, which is very, very nice, is of course the scene with the 5 holograms together. So that is good for my Orphan Black heart, and it was a special treat when they had to look something up and they all hit their head at the same time, searching information. Of course, the scene of Picard with Clancy was also very good. Perhaps summarizing all these very good scenes should put up my grade even more than 7.5. Greetings, all the best, Fred from the Netherlands.
Well, thank you once again for your feedback, Fred. I know what a frustrating week it was for you last week, as we talked several times about what was going to happen and you potentially not getting your money back for it and all that. But I am glad that they decided to postpone it, and hopefully when they reschedule, both you and your son will be able to attend and get your money's worth out of an evening with William Shatner.
I did one of those recently, not with William Shatner, but with John Cleese of Monty Python fame.
Right.
We watched Monty Python and the Holy Grail, and then
Oh,
John Cleese came out and did a question and answer. And of course, he had a Wuhan virus joke, too.
Oh, no.
Oh, yeah. Nothing was spared. But those are interesting. They're pretty popular now. And there's another one coming locally, too. That's if it's not interrupted by the coronavirus scare.
Yep. Well, I am glad that you brought your score up a little bit with a few of the scenes that we also liked a lot. The scene with Picard and Soji. And, of course, 7 of 9 was amazing, as always.
I only wish we saw more of that. If I had a criticism, and I agree with most Fred has to say here.
Right. There was
too much Rios and not enough of what was going on with the Cube. I mean, It was a great platform for Rios, but the Cube stuff was, I don't know, more interesting to me.
Yeah, I would have definitely liked to have seen 7 of 9 getting rid of the rest of the Romulans and locating where Picard was and getting the ship operational and heading to rendezvous.
Yeah, that would be interesting. I hope we see that. I wonder if it's one of those things where we thought it might go into season 2. There's a lot to do in 2 more episodes.
Yes, there really is. And yeah, Narissa saying resistance is futile was pretty amazing.
Yes.
She sounded like she could have made a really great Borg queen.
Yeah. Maybe she still can.
Yeah.
Careful what you wish for, lady.
And I think we definitely loved the Orphan Blackish scene with the 5 holograms. That was real
funny.
Good. And trying to wake up the weapons officer.
Yeah. It's funny how he split up his personality into those 5 parts, including one that's a little still hungover and sleepy.
Right.
Good grief.
Always. The 2 times we've seen him, he's been like, oh, man, why are you messing with me?
Yeah, we find out from one of the hollows that he used the self-scan option. I guess that was one way of dealing with his trauma, I guess.
Yeah.
Keep part of his personality split up 5 different ways. Who knows?
Yep. Once again, Fred, it's great to hear from you, and we're looking forward to hearing from you for the last 2 episodes of the season. We would love to hear your thoughts on each and every episode this season and looking forward to interacting with you on social media. How can the fans interact with us, Dave?
You can go to www.fangirlzone.com and click on the contact link, and you'll find several ways to contact us via email or social media. On Twitter, it's @SawyerSteve, and I'm @TheRealIDDave.
Please review and rate us on iTunes and all the other platforms you're listening to us on. Good ratings and reviews help other fans of the show find us, as there are a lot of Star Trek Picard podcasts out there. Tell your friends, and we do hope you're enjoying our podcast. And don't forget to check out the other great Fangirl podcasts.
The next episode is on March 19th and is titled Et an Arcadia Ego, Part 1. Until then, remember,
this is Chief Engineer Steve, and now the windmills have turned out to be giants.
And this is Red Shirt Dave. I'm used to being used as target practice as a red shirt, but I'm having trouble with keeping my social distance these days from Narissa and 7 of 9. I hope this virus goes away.
Yeah.
But everybody wash your hands.